Welcome to the cockpit. My name's Ryan and I'll be your pilot tonight. Boys and girls, we are talking a little GM head coach search, gearing more towards the GM side of things. It's kind of one of those chicken or the egg situations. Do you wind up getting the GM to hire the head coach, or do you find the best possible head coach and try to find a GM that has some synergy between the two? Boys and girls, if you're frustrated like me, drop a like on this video. Thoughts from yesterday's game: very undisciplined team, very disappointing. Doesn't seem to be able to turn it on. We didn't get a first down until almost the end of the first half, which is absolutely bonkers. Aaron Rodgers had a bad game regardless of a final stat line. Did not like what we got out of him. Missing receivers, going, throwing the ball backwards, taking sacks when he shouldn't. So rather than discuss the game so much, I do want to take a look at some of the GM candidates. I saw a list put out by Sports Illustrated. This is going back to the beginning of the football season, so maybe some of these guys aren't as dialed in as they were at the start of the calendar football year. But I want to go through it, try to get some knowledge in my head as far as who I think would be nice to have in here. Thank you, by the way. BetUS is powering this stream. For those of you guys that are still interested in who might be an AFC conference winner, you could throw some money on the Jets, plus 25,000 if you think we got a shot. I think there's a 4% chance of making the playoffs. But for AFC conference winner, the two favorites I like for this right now, the Ravens at plus 350 and the Texans at plus 1,200. I think those are both worthwhile shots if you want to take a stab at one in the dark. Get 150% bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000 using code YouTube150 over at BetUS. So we got a lot of stuff going on. Let's go into the chat real quick, see who is joining us. I see Dakota in here, says Seahawks 45, Jets 17. It certainly feels like it might go that way from what we've been seeing. NY Sports Wicker Media says, this is horrific. Joe Douglas is too good for the Jets. He deserves better. So I'm someone who's been pretty understanding of Joe Douglas. I still think he's one of the better GMs that I've seen, if not the best GM that I've seen as a Jet GM. Now that's me going through Parcells and Tannenbaum and Idzik and McCagnon and now to Joe Douglas. So maybe not the best who's who of GMs, but I think he's the most respected football mind that we've had in the building in quite some time. So it is a little disappointing to see that it's probably going to be going a different route, but I certainly understand it given his record. Let's hop over into this because I did have something I want to show you guys. This is the tweet from U Stadium. So this is what we heard the other day. The expectation is the Jets and GM Joe Douglas will part ways once the season ends. Douglas could end up back in Baltimore as part of the Ravens front office where he began his career and spent time between 2000 and 2014. Sources tell U Stadium he has already begun looking for real estate in the Baltimore area. The Jets are expected to run a wide open search for a new new general manager and head coach this January. Douglas has spent 6 seasons as the Jets general manager and has a 30-63 record with 0 playoff appearances. And that final sentence there is why Joe Douglas is ultimately going to be gone. The Zach Wilson pick, absolutely a major fault of his. The Mekhi Becton pick wound up being a pretty bad selection as far as left tackle goes. Seems to be doing all right at guard in Philadelphia, but clearly those two picks were an issue. And then Aaron Rodgers was the final last gasp to save the whole regime, hopefully turn it around, and then get your second future quarterback after the Rodgers experience ended and you have a Super Bowl and all this stuff. And unfortunately, we fell flat on our face that way. So Joe Douglas, this is not shocking to me. This is, for anyone who's been paying attention, it feels like this is really where the marbles were all rolling to. That's not a saying. I don't know. Felt like this is where this whole thing was gonna be headed when we were all said and done. We'll talk a little bit more to the chat, and then we'll say at 8:10 we'll start going through this list. So let's hear what you guys have to say in here. Jacob, what's up, dude? Says this team is an embarrassment. To think I almost got it tattooed on me. Dude, I'm a big tattoo guy, and I have not gotten the Jets tattooed on me. I probably will at some point, as terrible as a decision as that is. I'll probably do it at some point. But, oh, geez. Ray says, being a Jets fan since 1968, this team is cursed. It certainly feels that way. DJ says, don't know what to think. Don't know what to do. I just want to take a break and try to ignore it. JD, if you haven't noticed, I have wildly stepped back from making content. This is one of those seasons where I'm just like, yo, I'm tapped out. There's going to be a ton of guys making content right now, but man, I am going to make content, but I want to make content that I want to make, and I don't want to have to force it necessarily. This is like, I told my wife, I was like, I got to sit here and watch the Jets lose to the Colts. Like, I know it's going to happen. Originally, I thought, hey, we're going to win this game because this is a game we should lose. So I found myself in this weird contradictory, like, hey, I want to be kind of upset that we pooched it or screwed it up at the end. But then at the same time, I kind of got the loss that I sort of, I don't know. It's frustrating. Jay says, give us Milroe. In an early evaluation for me, I really like Milroe. Again, I have not done my full breakdowns yet, so I need to do that. Oreo says, I found myself detached from this team. At this point, I can barely care about football. Even if I lose interest in this team and no longer become a fan, I'll still tune into your channel. Thank you, Oreo. I greatly appreciate it. Ooh, Neil says, nice haircut, bro. We got to clean house. If we get rid of JD, we need to clean house. So speaking of nice haircut, thank you, by the way, went to Postus Barbershop in Franklin, New Jersey. John Postus is a big Jet fan. I found out he watches my channel. It's great. I walk into the barbershop. He's like, you've been here before. I was like, this is my first time. He's like, you like the Jets, don't you? I was like, I do like the Jets. He's like, I watch your podcast. I was like, oh, John! So John cut my hair. I am very happy. Thank you for that. Adirondack Fly Guy says, depends on the coach. If someone like Vrabel is there, we could do, he could do the search. Yeah, if we get Vrabel, if you can get Vrabel, I'm okay with him selecting his GM. Maybe if you get a younger offensive coordinator, maybe I'd go a different route. But we'll see. Cole says, Joe Douglas has been such a mixed bag. He has created a great defense on paper, but is incapable of making even an average or below average offensive line. You know what's frustrating is like, I think he knows how to build an offensive line, because I just think the Becton pick kind of like screwed us a bit. One, the talent was there, absolutely there to begin with. The mental state was probably not there, which is probably why you saw him shift a little bit more in his evaluation of the mental side of players beyond that pick. But the reason we didn't keep Moses and the reason we didn't keep George Fant was because we had hope in Mekhi Becton. So that one pick really kind of jacked up our timeline as far as what we wanted to do. Like, it would have been great if Becton was like, yeah, sure, I'll play guard and be the best, one of the best offensive linemen there. Then you got AVT and him and McGovern, and then you have Fant and Moses on the outside. That's a halfway decent looking offensive line. Damn it. I don't know. Big JT, we're going to talk about this guy, Ray Agnew, and pair him with Aaron Glenn, a coach he's familiar with. Build a legit team with a winning culture. I really like Aaron Glenn. I don't know if I necessarily want him for head coach, being a defensive mind, but we could certainly go a lot worse directions. Jay says Milroe would be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, that's kind of where I felt. Just watching. I mean, I'm purely highlight watching right now. I have not dove into the tape, but he is a very fun quarterback to watch right now. TJ, never ever tattoo the Jets on your body. I'm sure I could put worse things on my body, so that's all right. Wrecked. Woody snipped his nuts. I don't blame Joe for wanting to move on. Woody is likely insufferable. Yeah, honestly, I've been saying this since the trade for Aaron Rodgers. I felt like the trade was forced before the draft, and Woody overstepped Douglas at that point last year. It would be interesting to find out if that's what actually happened, or if JD was like, hey, we got to get this done, before the draft. But I do think Woody overstepped his bounds this year to get some stuff done. And I'm sure Joe Douglas has probably made this decision up, if not a year ago, certainly within the last few months. Eminon, I don't like the fact that when moves need to be made, they don't get done in a timely fashion. I don't know if that's so much a head coaching thing or a GM thing. Maybe you argue last year with the quarterback going down in Rodgers, he didn't come in and trade for another quarterback. We heard from Woody that the season was done at that point. There were no more assets being, pushed into the pot, which leads me to believe he had some sort of like hold over Joe Douglas's ability to trade, which I'm sure is annoying if Jody wanted to do that. Florida Jets fan, what did you tell your barber for that cut? Look sharp. 2 on the sides. He faded it, and then scissors on top. So that's how that went. And then I have my hair was like just a little poofy. It wasn't anything too crazy. So that's what I said. And TJ says, watch us bring back Mangini. Oddly enough, I thought Mangini was like one of our better, people on our team for a long time. All right. So with that said, if you guys have any comments on this list, we'll start going through it. This is from Sports Illustrated, so we'll go through it. It's a pretty long list. So we'll just read each one, just kind of get a good understanding of where we sort of stand. Ray Agnew, assistant GM of the Detroit Lions. Agnew is an interesting background as a candidate on this list. Once a top 10 pick, the old defensive tackle transitioned to an off-the-field role with the Rams after winning a Super Bowl with them in 1999, then retired after the 2000 season. His 18-year rise through the administrative side included stints as a team pastor, director of player development, assistant pro scouting director, and finally pro scouting director. Brad Holmes took him to Detroit with him, where he's been an invaluable resource with a unique eye in player evaluation and a unifying force with low-key Ozzie Newsome type presence. So you got to figure, based on how the Lions are currently performing, whether you believe that's because of Ben Johnson, because of Dan Campbell, because of the chemistry of all of it going together, or maybe some input from Brad Holmes and Ray Agnew and whatnot. This is not a bad option for us to go. Plucking people off that Lions staff, particularly Ben Johnson, if you could get him, would be the move. I think Agnew's probably more than likely going to follow Ben Johnson purely because top coaching candidate can choose whoever he wants, seemingly for a GM role, unless there's a GM where he's going. I think the Raiders would make a lot of sense for him. I also think the Giants, if the Giants wind up with the number 1 overall pick, I could totally see Ben Johnson going there and those guys sort of setting everything right. But we'll see. I do like that, and Ozzie Newsome type is certainly something we like. Matthew Berry, Director of Player Personnel for the Seattle Seahawks. Berry's long been seen internally as a top-notch evaluator and was promoted last spring after nearly a decade as the team's college scouting director. Over the past couple of years, buoyed by capital that came back in the Jamal Adams trade, Seattle has built a rock-solid base of young talent, putting the team in position to contend on an annual basis. Coming up with on the college side, his blind spot would be lack of time in the office, but he's shown plenty of ability there over the last year with a highly organized approach to scouting and setting up the department. Kept afloat by the capital that came back in the Jamal Adams trade. What did they get in the Jamal Adams trade? They got Jamal Adams. Someone's gonna have to make me understand what that's going at here. I would say no for that right now, even though they've done all right with the offensive side of the ball. Mike Borgonzi, assistant GM, Kansas City Chiefs, has been GM Brett Veach's number 2 for 7 seasons and has 7 division titles, 3 AFC championships, and 2 Lombardi trophies over that time. He was initially hired in Kansas City in 2009 by Pioli, which gave him 4 years in a Patriot-style program before Andy Reid arrived in 2013. He's done just about everything in his time, and as a result, the former Ivy League fullback is about as well-rounded and ready a candidate as you'll find. It's hard not to want to go, Wild Wave says, I think they meant the Russell Wilson trade. That makes a lot more sense. Wild Wave. Talking about the Matthew Berry bolstered by, the Jamal Adams trade, bolstered by the Russell Wilson trade would make a hell of a lot more sense. Look, taking a GM off the Kansas City Chiefs is totally fine with me. I think they've been a very good organization since before even Andy Reid got there, and just knowing how to win, knowing how to, develop players. Now, it is tough for me to separate the success of the GM from the success of the head coach and from the success of the quarterback, because both those guys, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, 2 of the best we have ever seen, but very much would be on board with a Kansas City Chiefs hiring here. Chad Brinker, assistant GM for the Tennessee Titans. In his first year with the Titans, Brinker has a unique background, toggling between scouting and cap analytics, Coming up in Green Bay, he has worked in both pro college scouting before working closely with longtime Packers lead negotiator Russ Ball over the past 6 seasons. As part of the last assignment, Breaker received an MBA from Northwestern, giving him the sort of business football blend in background that will appeal to owners. Is he ready? It's a fair question, but his time is coming. I would say no for this purely because he seems a little bit more like a numbers guy and not so much a football guy. I want a football guy in as GM, or if you're going to get a president, get the football guy in at president, and then, maybe a cap guy. But I would prefer the head of our scouting kind of efforts to be more of a football brain. Brandon Brown, assistant GM for the New York Giants. I am just going to scroll down on this right now because I don't want anyone from the Giants aside from maybe Daboll. So I apologize if you were interested in that one. Trey Brown, senior personnel executive, Cincinnati Bengals. Brown has been an essential part of the Bengals build over the past 3 years, with Cincinnati aggressively taking advantage of Joe Burrow's rookie contract window to build a roster strong enough to contend for titles in 2021 and 2022. And even for a playoff caliber team without its quarterback for a good chunk of this year, Brown and other well-respected guys such as Mike Potts and Steve Radovic have responsibilities in all areas, providing good experience for bigger jobs. And Brown also worked for Bill Belichick in New England and Howie Roseman in Philadelphia, and has held decision-making positions in the AAF and XFL. He has ties to Jared Mayo, could eventually lead him back to the Patriots. I guess that would be interesting, right? A little bit of success there in Cincinnati. Maybe. We'll see. Glenn Cook, assistant GM for the Cleveland Browns, former University of Miami linebacker, has interviewed for the Chicago Bears, Minnesota Vikings, and Titans jobs over the past 2 seasons. He has proved himself in a forward-thinking Cleveland personnel department, integrating analytics and data into old-school football background, working for Bill Polian, Ted Thompson, and John Dorsey. And Cleveland's ability to withstand a bunch of injuries this season, make the playoffs this year, is a shining example of the strength of roster that Cook helped Andrew Berry build. Obviously, this is talking about last year, 2023 season, not the 2024 season, but an interesting name. Interesting name. When you get interviewed for 3 different jobs over the last 2 years, it does tend to lead me to believe that you're not the guy, not the cream of the crop guy. But who knows? Maybe the Jets are not going to be that cream of the crop type of organization. I obviously feel like we're going to be struggling to get head coaching candidates, so GM is probably going to be something similar. Ian Cunningham, assistant GM for the Chicago Bears. Cunningham was on the cusp of landing the Arizona Cardinals job before pulling his name out last year. He interviewed in Tennessee too, and that was without the results. The Bears are getting now in the rebuild. To help orchestrate GM Ryan Poles, Cunningham came from Philly, where he was a college director and assistant director. He also worked under Ozzie Newsome in Baltimore, where he worked his way into the position of Southeast area scout. Newsome, the Alabama legend, didn't staff lightly. Look, Cunningham, I don't think is going to be an option for us because of how things went down with Joe Douglas. Sorry to say, Jets, when you have the opportunity to court good football minds that have intertwined, especially between Philadelphia and Baltimore, you got to think Joe Douglas and him have crossed paths multiple times. I would say that's not an option for the Jets. Ed Dodds, assistant GM for the Colts. The NFL's Road Scouts universally see Dodds as one of the league's most connected and talented evaluators. His role in Seattle helping build the Legion of Boom before he arrived in Indy as the Colts assistant general manager. He's been part of a playoff contender under 2 different coaches. Chris Ballard's most trusted lieutenant. It's worth keeping an eye on Las Vegas with Dodds. The Raiders really liked him after he interviewed in 2022. He has connections to Jim Harbaugh, who could be a target. I would say, again, Legion of Boom, Salah was there. I guess it depends if they overlapped at all. But, man, there's a lot of guys that have a lot of, intertwining relationships, and I feel less optimistic every time I see those things cross. Terrence Gray, director of player personnel for the Bills. Brandon Beane's scouting pipeline has Gray up next, and Gray impressed the NFL people he's met with the past couple of rounds that the front office and coach accelerator program. Gray worked on the college scouting side under former Vikings GM Rick Spielman and former assistant GM George Patton in Minnesota, now the Broncos GM, and continued with continued that when Bean hired him as college scouting director in 2017. He was named assistant director of player personnel in 2020, then moved to his current role, taking on more prominent position in pro scouting when Joe Schoen left to take the Giants GM role in 2022. Gray's polished and has steadily become more and more complete executive. I don't know. Maybe. I feel like having Buffalo, you have an opportunity with like taking someone from Buffalo to bolster a division rival. It depends how like much allegiance he has to Buffalo. Maybe he chooses to go a different route. Sometimes you can get them to hop to a division rival. But we'll continue going on here. Mike Greenberg. Greeny, what? Assistant GM, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He came up with the cap side, but he's done more crossing over as he closes out his 14th season with the Tampa Bay organization. For years, the Bucs had the NFL's cleanest cap, and Greenberg was able to help them pivot to a win-now model during Tom Brady's 3 years. But this year came with a big reset of the cap. Greenberg also brings experience in the league office, which will appeal to some owners. Again, this is like a money guy, so I don't really want to go that route. Assistant GM for Philadelphia Eagles, Alec Hallaby. Again, when we have that connection with Joe Douglas and his time in Philadelphia, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. I'm going to say probably not the guy we're looking for. Kai Harley, assistant GM, VP of football operations for the New Orleans Saints. Over the years, Saints have shown an ability to maintain a top-heavy roster while taking care of their own. Harley has been instrumental in GM Mickey Loomis's ability to do all of that through the Sean Payton years and now through Dennis Allen's first 2 years. Dennis Allen was fired, so, still there. But there could be plenty of rumblings if Payton could have taken Harley with him as GM when the former Saints coach was considering his options, which is a nice affirmation of how he sees Harley. Man, I wish this was like updated. It's hard to find stuff like in season for GM candidates because this is dating back to last year. But interesting. If he's still with the Saints, they do tend to like maneuver themselves out of cap hell. But again, I don't really want a money guy. Joe Horitz, director of player personnel for Baltimore. Again, man, it just doesn't feel right. Horitz came up as a college scout like Baltimore GM Eric DeCosta and Jets GM Joe Douglas. Did they overlap? Does it say the years? I'm just going to say probably not. I don't think that's going to be an option. James Lipfert, executive director of player personnel for the Houston Texans. Lipfert started his career as a college scout in New England and had a reputation there similar to Dodds in Seattle as a sort of a secret weapon for a championship organization. Bill O'Brien, having been with the Patriots, knew it and poached Lipfert in 2018 to be his college scouting director. Since Lipfert's old boss from New England, Nick Caserio, has taken over, Lipfert has risen through the ranks. He may be a year or two away, but he's one of the game's rising young executives. All right. Nick Mateo, VP of Football Administrations for the God. I feel bad, but I'm gonna pass over these guys that have ties to the Ravens and have ties to the Eagles. It's as much as that sucks. I feel like that's gonna be the way things play out. Will McClay, VP of Player Personnel, Dallas Cowboys. McClay is, in a lot of ways, the Dallas GM. He just doesn't have the title. The guy who signs his checks. Still, there's little dispute in league circles on just how vital McClay has been to the Cowboys' success. Will has done a magnificent job there, an NFC GM said. Just look at the history of who he's drafted and signed. Indeed, there's a reason why Dallas consistently has one of the NFL's very best rosters. And he's another that would be among the elite on this list. Jerry Jones has really taken care of him, and he loves Dallas, but I think he eventually takes his shot elsewhere and wouldn't want to be the team that didn't. You wouldn't want to be the team that didn't ask for McClay. Has also done a good job. Jets Network. Where did I get this information? This is from Sports Illustrated. This is an article written at the beginning of the 2024 football season. Football season meaning like, I guess the end of the 23 season. So beginning of last year, January, February, somewhere in there. So some of this stuff is a little outdated, but it's hard to get a really good list of executives other than like the main ones that people are kind of like discussing. So if some of this stuff is a little outdated, you can blame, I think it's Albert Breer that did this article, or me for just bringing it up, a little bit later. Next up, Jim Nagy, executive director for the Senior Bowl. This would be interesting because we have Phil Savage, who used to run the Senior Bowl. So maybe there's a situation where Nagy comes in. The sort of executive experience we detailed above has been central to Nagy's job over the past 6 seasons. He's had to manage a staff and budget, be the face of an operation, hire scouts, recruit players, and yes, be a talent evaluator too. He's also had to build relationships with every NFL team, every major college program, and agents to get his game where it needs to be annually. All that experience, plus his time working as a scout for the Patriots, Chiefs, Seahawks before arriving in Mobile, Alabama, is applicable to the breadth of roles a GM has to play. I'm going to say Nagy is pretty high up on my list based on the way this is worded. Having all that interaction with the Senior Bowl guys. I wonder if Phil Savage would have any sort of, pull on this. I see Beefy in there. Beefy saying, let's do homework together. See? We're learning. That's what you're doing here on Jets Talk 24/7 because I don't have much time to learn stuff while I have all these kids. So we're gonna learn on the clock here. So you get to see how we're making lemonade. Adam Peters, assistant GM, San Francisco 49ers. I guess there's only 31 or 32 GM jobs in the NFL. And even though Salah's time was cut short here, I don't know. Every time we burn someone from our organization, I think they're going to be less likely to join us, other people. But anyway, Adam Peters, assistant GM. The only reason I'm going to read this is because I really like John Lynch as a GM, and if this guy's been learning under him, I don't dislike that. The only thing Peters hasn't accomplished in his 6 years in San Francisco is win a title. That might be coming. The former UCLA player cut his teeth as a college scout in New England, rose as a personnel man in Denver under Josh McDaniels and then John Elway, and grew into well-respected exec in San Francisco, going to Super Bowls with all 3 teams. Peters nearly got the Giants job 2 years ago, turned down interviews with the Titans and Cardinals last year, so he won't leave a good situation for just any job, but the native Californian could be interested in the Chargers. He's not coming to the Jets. Peters is with Washington. There you go. Wildwave, is this outdated? Yes, a little outdated. Are you able to link to the chart? Sure, yeah, I'll link to it. Not all this stuff is current right now, so we'll get through it, but I'll throw this in the chat. If you guys would like to follow along, and we'll see how it goes. Again, some of this stuff is a little dated here, but we'll get through it. 𝐀𝐟𝐼RE 𝐸𝐤𝐤, assistant GM for the Cleveland Browns. She's drawn respect from her peers for her ability to build and execute a strategic vision, something she called as a top executive for the Montreal Alouettes and Toronto Argonauts. Rach was hired from there by Roseman while she was at the Eagles. She also worked under Andrew Berry, who took her to Cleveland to lead football operations, a role he had in Philly. She's shown acumen in scouting, contract management, and player development, and is a pretty decent bet to eventually become the NFL's first female GM. Well, that's cool. That's kind of neat. Don't really have a whole lot to say on that. Jake Roseman, VP of Football Administration for the Eagles. Damn, same thing. A Joe Douglas connection. I don't see it happening. Kyle Smith, assistant GM for the Atlanta Falcons, the son of former Chargers GM A.J. Smith. The Atlanta executive was years ago. The Atlanta executive was, years ago, seen as a future GM. After years in Snyder's Washington, he's been seen his stock rebound in a new place. Teams have tried to poach him, which is one reason why Terry Fontenot promoted him in the spring. Assistant GMs can't leave for anything but a GM position without permission. Niners coach Kyle Shanahan is a proponent and even explored trying to hire Smith a couple of years ago when John Lynch considered walking away. All right, Kyle Smith. Interesting. John Spytek, assistant general manager for the Bucs. He'd be there with Borgonzi, Horitz, McClay, and Peters on the highest of this list. Spytek is another experienced evaluator who has worked for the league's best organizations. His first full-time job in the league was for the Eagles. He was then hired by Mike Holmgren, the late Tom Heckert in Cleveland, spent 3 years, won a Super Bowl with Elway in Denver. In Tampa, he's been alongside Jason Licht in building a championship roster during the college, luring his former college teammate, Tom Brady, to Florida. No way. John Eric Sullivan, VP of Player Personnel for the Green Bay Packers. Oh, could you imagine he comes here and he's just like, screw this Aaron Rodgers guy. I'm cutting his ass. Oh, geez. All right. The son of longtime NFL receivers coach Jerry Sullivan, John Eric, spent nearly 2 decades with the Packers, working his way through the ranks as a college scout. So basically, he's been all around Rodgers. Hendrickson came over in 2019 from Baltimore, where he was instrumental. That's not happening. That's not happening. Man, dude, our fucking team just going to blackball everyone from us. All right, Nolan Teasley, assistant GM, Seahawks, promoted last year from his old post as pro scouting director. Teasley has spent the entirety of this time in the NFL working his way through John Snyder's personnel department, mostly on the pro side. He's proven to be strong as an evaluator and an innovator in the way he handles his evaluations. With a new age eye for talent, he may be a couple of years away from garner respect, but has garnered the respect of those around him. Brandon Tillis, VP of Football Operations for the Chiefs. One veteran GM I was texting with earlier this week called Tillis really special as a personnel guy. By trade, Tillis has come up with the cap analytics side, but he's made an impact across the board for the Chiefs, negotiating Patrick Mahomes' unique contract, helping Veach and Borgonzi rework the roster around it while rebuilding the defensive and offensive lines. He's a little outside the box, yes, but he did interview for the Panthers job a few years back and should be in the mix for more soon. I'd probably pass on him if I had to guess. Duke Tobin, director of player personnel for Cincinnati Bengals. Like McClay, he works in an organization where the owners retain the GM title. And so he, as the top personnel guy, does a lot of the GM things without being a GM in name. Still, Tobin led the Bengals personnel staff through distinct builds. The first around Andy Dalton, the second around Joe Burrow, with different coaches and a lot of success. Also, with a small scouting staff, there's a lot on his plate. He's shown the ability to manage all of it. That said, he's comfortable in Cincinnati with Burrow there. Why leave? Yeah, if he's the top dog over there, it doesn't seem like he'd be one to move. Andy Weddle, assistant GM, Pittsburgh Steelers. He's ranked higher in the past, but he's always been a really solid evaluator, and his pedigree is pristine, having gone from Baltimore to Philadelphia to Pittsburgh over his career. Damn it! Another guy with friggin' Baltimore ties, Philadelphia ties. Just skip over that one. Damn it. Elliot Wolf, director of scouting, New England Patriots. I really don't want a Patriots guy. He and Gutekunst came up together in Green Bay, and it was neck and neck between the two for the job. Wolf didn't land it and has been in Cleveland and New England since, near the top of the organizational chart and proving to be a difference maker as an evaluator, team builder, communicator. He's interviewed for GM jobs going back half a decade and was a finalist for Minnesota, Chicago 2 years ago. I don't want him. That's the end of it. Damn. All right. So yeah, see, this was written last year. So published January 5th, 2024. So still a lot of things to look at. As far as this list goes, though, it sucks because the best guys are coming from like Philly and Baltimore, and we had our Philly-Baltimore guy, and we fucking ran him out of town. So I don't know. Nagy's an interesting one for me, especially since Savage is here. Maybe there's a situation where you can keep both those guys together. We'll see. I have a feeling we are in for a rough go of it, looking for a GM. I don't know. Oh, man, that sucks. That really sucks. Boys and girls, I want to get into your thoughts and questions. I want to hear who you guys want in the comment section of the chat. We'll talk about that through the rest of this stream. I do want to bring up the sponsor of the channel for tonight's episode, and that is Via. If you guys have not done this, go take a look. Need a break from crowded stores and endless gift lists? Restore your zen and embrace the natural power of hemp this holiday season with Via. This holiday season, unwind and recharge with Via, whether you're enjoying a quiet evening at home or embracing the festive cheer. Via's premium THC and THC-free gummies will help you find your perfect holiday balance. Via is well renowned for their award-winning THC and THC-free gummies and vapes, THCA flower, soothing topicals, and calming drops, all crafted with the highest quality hemp sourced from trusted, independently owned American farms. And the best part, Via legally ships to nearly all states in the U.S. in discreet packaging directly to your door with worry-free guarantee. No medical card required. So if you're 21 or over, check out the link in my description to Via's website and click that link in the description. Use promo code JetsTalk to get 15% off. I have had a blast with this. This is actually what I'm getting some of my, my cousins, I shouldn't say cousins, but my family members, extended family members this holiday season. Really cool presented gift box. They gave me a bunch of the THC gummies. I have a bunch of the CBD gummies. Becca has really enjoyed the melatonin, Zen gummies that have helped her sleep. And I am quite the connoisseur in the gummies if you've been watching the channel for a little bit here. So if you want to help support the channel, help support the sponsor of the channel, click on the link in the description down below to go to Via's website and get yourself a little discount using promo code JetsTalk. So thank you guys for sponsoring the channel. Let's talk a little bit about some of our comments in here. Maurice comes in and says, head coach Rex Ryan, defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, offensive coordinator Josh McCown, GM Tannenbaum for starters. God dang it. We're just going to run it back. Look, I understand where the Rex Ryan love comes from. And there's a world and a scenario where I'm fine with him being that guy. Admittedly, we have to strike out on a few other head coaches for me to want to get to that level. Tannenbaum, as far as Tannenbaum goes, man, he's just like, he had some solid drafting. He never had a lot of draft picks, which maybe you'd rather have good players and less draft picks. I can understand that, but Tannenbaum kind of got walked all over by Rex the first time around, and I didn't like it. Like, if you could tell me you compare Rex with Joe Douglas, I think that actually would be a more symbiotic relationship, but I don't love the Tannenbaum one. For me on here. I do like Josh McCown as an offensive coordinator. I think it's one of those low rung kind of guys that I could see coming over here. He's the quarterback coach for the Vikings right now. I like Aaron Glenn. He's not going to go from defensive coordinator with the Lions to defensive coordinator with the Jets, though. I'd be very, very surprised. I think he's only going to take a head coaching role. And then Rex is the head coach. Again, I don't hate Rex by any stretch. I would prefer Rex as more of an assistant head coach with him being defensive coordinator paired with like a Cliff Kingsbury or some type of young offensive-minded guy that might need the guidance of a once head coach in this league. So I don't hate your thought process, but it's not the direction I would want to go, at least with Rex and Glenn together. Man, I really don't want Tannenbaum. It's not that he hasn't been like fine. I don't know. Isaac says, love the idea of making Curtis Martin president of football operations, Ray Agnew or Mike Borgonzi for GM. Yeah, I I've seen the Curtis Martin for president of football operations, and I'm fine with that. I don't really know. I know Curtis the player, and I know he's wanted to get into ownership for a long time. I've heard he's got good connections from around the league. He could bounce some ideas off Parcells, I'm sure, to some degree. I guess you could do worse, right? Like, I like Curtis. I don't know. We don't have was it Jaime right now for president of football operations? It's got to be better than that, I would think. Kiyuka says, get Vrabel, and he picks this GM. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. He says, our guy didn't exactly help. Yeah, talking about Joe Douglas. Little rough. Jerome says, the Jets are a circus with different clowns every year. Yeah, that's what I told my buddy at work. We're both big Jet fans. And I was like, dude, there's part of me that's like, screw it. Rex Ryan, Deion Sanders, whoever. Come on down. Join the circus. Clown cars loading up. That's sort of where I feel. At this point, I just want to be entertained. I have come to the conclusion that I just have to accept we're never going to have anything nice. And if I have the lowest of low expectations and we just continue to have those low expectations, you can never be disappointed and you can only overachieve. Right? Sadly, that's where my mindset is. Beefy, we are 100% going to be in a rough go for any member of team management, sad but true. Yeah, look, Woody has made it such. Woody's the reason why this is going to be as tough as it is. Wild Wave says we need to get rid of Rodgers. I agree. I would like to move on from him. Cuca Lake, JD picked Salah and Zach and Becton, and his free agent signing sucked overall. He didn't do himself any favors. Lynch messed up and picked Lance, but had the right staff. Look, Lynch is a top 5 GM or whatever you want to call him in this league. As far as the Zach and Becton picks, I was frustrated with the Becton pick because I thought Wirfs should have been the selection at the time. I think the talent of Becton was clearly there as proof from his rookie campaign, and then he just couldn't stay healthy. So from a talent evaluation, I do think Douglas had that right. Ultimately being a bad pick. Zach was the one that really broke the back. Now, was that fully signed off on by Joe Douglas? Was Joe Douglas one of those people that we heard wanted to continue with Sam Darnold? Could Sam Darnold have been a player that Woody was more willing to move on from because he was not there when Sam was drafted? Remember, he was over in London. Does the JetBlue thing come into play with the sponsorship stuff? I don't buy that conspiracy theory side of it. I tend to look at the reports that came out that was like 21 or 23 GMs had Zach Wilson as the number 2 quarterback in that class. And I think we just took a swing while we had the number 2 overall pick. And as much as it sucks and they tried to move off of him or that it didn't work out, they did try to move off. They tried to correct after 2 years. They said, hey, look, we're bringing in Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't supposed to play a 3rd year. And he got hurt. Rodgers got hurt. So we had to see him. So I get it. I'm not going to make excuses for Douglas. His free agent signings overall sucked. Yeah, look, Tomlinson was a wacky one for me because I thought that one was going to work out. DJ Reed and Conklin are probably 2 of his best. John Simpson's a pretty good signing so far. Yeah, it's a mixed bag, but I think he's the right football guy to have in there, unfortunately. And we're gonna run him out. J-Boy, Woody will run it back with Rodgers' staff. And right now, Rodgers is playing for a high pick. I think that you're going to see... Man, do I still have my nose? I got like an itch in my nose. I think Woody is hoping Rodgers comes back, but if Woody's not around for next year, like if he's in the UK, he may care less about that. I don't know. Wild Wave. Ryan, I think you may be right. Garrett might end up with one of 2 teams that are playing right now. Yeah, I've been saying it for like a year at this point. I think if the Jets draft a quarterback, there's a potential that Garrett hangs around, especially if Rodgers stays for another year. If Rodgers is gone, I think you start hearing some chirping about wanting to get traded. And if you get a good enough offer, then I think the new GM will probably, pull that trigger. I would hate to see it because I don't really want to see this talented team of young players blown up without seeing a new head coach in place and a new regime, new energy. to me, I feel like I'd want to move some of those guys in like the in season at the trade deadline more than anything else. So we'll see, but that's I don't want to see that. 𝐀𝐄, stop with Rex. His last 4 years were awful, bad drafts, crappy free agents, killed the team. Yeah, that's people have short memories. Like the last 4 years of Rex were rough, very rough. Freedom House, A-Rod is not playing for a high pick. He is just old and too stubborn to adapt to a complicated offense. I think he's definitely just lacking mobility and just feels like every call he wants to make is right. Now, at the same time, you have the wanting to go for it, wanting to go for 2 after scoring the touchdown. That would have been the right move because worst case scenario, you're up by 7 and the other team, even if they decide to go for 2 later on, you still got to go down and kick a field goal or whatever. So I don't know. It's frustrating. I would have done that, but he's looked bad. Would he chase JD out? Disgraceful owner. Would he help himself? JD also helped himself. That's a really, really bad record he's had. Alan says Ryan. Hi. Time to watch the Lions and think this could have been the Jets. I mean, I'm going to be rooting for the Lions. Lions are probably my favorite team right now. Outside of our Jets, unfortunately. They're fun to watch. Would love to get that offense over here. Oreo, how about Bart Scott as head coach? Loves the Jets, knowledgeable, and understands the game. Did you see how he broke down perfectly what Aaron did wrong on the last drive? I did not. I did not see that. I would prefer not a rookie head coach. Love Bart, but again, I don't know. Not really. Not feeling that one. Timmy Chicken says, I love the Jets, but we suck. We do. We're terrible. It's the Woody curse. Yes. Wild Wave says, Vrabel isn't going to come here. This is his last chance to coach. Plus, he bumped heads with Tennessee's ownership. Yeah, he may be someone that's like, yeah, I'm not going to a situation I was just in. I do think Aaron Glenn is going to be our next head coach. I don't hate Aaron Glenn. I don't dislike Aaron Glenn at all. I don't really want him as our next head coach. Squishy, I'm pretty all in on Todd Monken right now. I am on board. I like Todd Monken a lot. I thought he should have been considered for a while. I liked what he did in Tampa Bay. I like what he did at Georgia. I like what he's doing in Baltimore right now. I would be all on board with that. J-Boy, Ryan pinned this. Rodgers will be VP of football by 2028. Oh, J-Boy. No. 𝐀𝐄 says, remember when everyone loved Salah presser and made fun of Campbell biting kneecaps? Yeah, because it was funny. It's funny biting kneecaps. And look, I'll be honest. I still think Salah's like halfway decent. I don't think he had any accountability for the players, so he's probably better off being a defensive coordinator. But I still do like Salah. Just not as our head coach, obviously. Keenan says, Green Bean as our GM. O'Leary as our offensive coordinator. Ryan as defensive coach. Let's book it. Hell yeah. I'm going to blitz every time. Every play. Someone's coming. You're never just getting 4. Wilson is getting a bag, and I mean a fat one. Yeah, I think that's why that Adam Schefter report came out, or column came out about a month ago now, saying that there's teams out there willing to trade for Garrett or pay him when his contract is up to be negotiated, which is this offseason. It would not shock me if he's gone. Moo says, GM fired. No, not yet. Not yet. But he is looking elsewhere. Oreo, it would benefit the fans to not put so much emphasis on the GM's decisions. Y'all been hyped over JD's decisions, only to criticize him in the end for it. Be indifferent about every decision. I've been pretty pumped on a lot of Joe Douglas' decisions. The way I try to make my judgments on a GM or our GM, just because I'm not watching every team's ins and outs, but our GM, I look at, okay, what are the available options at the time? What was your thought process to get there? And then finally, how did it work out? Because ultimately, how it worked out is how you have to be graded. But for me, I can understand the rationale, right? Like I understand going after Zach Wilson because of the circumstance of having the number 2 overall pick. I understand moving off of Sam because of his 5th-year option. You're offered a 2nd-round pick, that sort of thing. So there's certain aspects to it that I think, need a little bit more nuance. I thought how he handled the Jamal Adams trade was perfect. We obviously reset our roster because of it. Not overpaying Marcus May, I thought was a good move. There's been free agent moves that have sucked. There's been absolutely, bad draft picks and bad GMs and whatnot. But I feel like I've viewed most of Douglas's stuff in an optimistic light. I would say this past offseason is what sort of soured me. Him dismantling the defensive line was something that I'm pretty upset with. Ryan, how have we looked? In a hurry. Bad. Offensive play calling sucks. Yes. This organization needs an enema. Wild Wave. I felt we were building something and Woody wanted Rodgers. All this started when Woody forced the LaFleur firing. Yeah, with LaFleur getting canned, I think Woody knew. I think the whole league probably had an understanding that the Jets were going to have a good shot at Rodgers. I hate that LaFleur was fired. It did seem like he was a little abrasive and didn't want to try to change some stuff to get things to work, or he was overcomplicating things. I don't exactly know, but I do think he was more creative of an offensive mind than anything we've seen since. And bringing Rodgers' best buddy in here, Hackett, I could totally see Woody being the one manipulating those strings. And he's looking at his purse. He's trying to see how much money he's going to make. He forces the trade before the draft to get the primetime games in the NFL scheduling. Absolutely. Forget about head coach for now. Who will be the GM? Harlan, we just went over a whole list of GMs. You're here. You're late. You're late. We went through a whole bunch. Granted, it's a list from last year, so it's a little dated, but most people landed on, Agnew as the top name out there. The Chiefs guy. There's a few names that we could talk about. Ted says, look at what Jim Harbaugh is doing for the LA Chargers. Jets need to bring in an experienced head coach with a proven track record and can control the locker room. So one really big thing about Jim Harbaugh, one, had wildly good success as a head coach, both at the collegiate level and at the NFL level, but then also coming from the premier college team that won a national championship, going to the NFL to then draft guys that he has scouted and recruited, and he is in a prime position. Chargers are in a really, really good spot right now. I don't know if there's a guy out there, like maybe a Dion is the name that probably pops up more consistently. I don't think the guy from Matt Campbell from Iowa, is that right? Yeah, Iowa. No, Iowa State is leaving anytime soon. So I don't know if there's someone like that. But to me, Vrabel is kind of the guy. If Stefanski's let go, he could be the guy. I would kick the tires on Daboll if he wanted to stay in the New York area. Bulldogs, hire VP of football operations, remove Johnsons from football ops. Yes, that needs to happen. Absolutely needs to happen. Rafi, what's up, dude? Says, my top 3 choices for head coach, Mike Vrabel, Todd Monken, Ben Johnson. Do I think any of them sign here? No, because we're a dysfunctional franchise. I would actually second this list. I would probably put Ben Johnson as 1 or 2. Vrabel, I think Vrabel, because of the experience, I would want to put at 1, but because of how successful Ben Johnson's offense is, if you wanted to say 1A, 1B, that's fine with me. And I really like Todd Monken. I'm a big fan. You wonder how much he's willing to move around. I heard something somewhere that he was trying to settle down a little bit more. He's a little bit older as well, but I would like that. Don't judge a GM on player moves. What the hell do you judge a GM on? No, look, I think you have to judge him on player moves, but I think you also look at the circumstance leading up to each decision. Like we made the decision to go after Rodgers, which you're gambling on Rodgers going back to his average prior to the 2021 season, right? Or 2022 season, how he performed in 2020 and 2021. And you would think that 2022 was just an outlier. Clearly that has not worked out. In hindsight, Baker Mayfield would have been the best selection for that particular free agent quarterback class. Vrabel could change a culture. I agree. I just don't know if he's willing to put up with Woody. I think we're going to be in a really, really hard spot. Johnny Football, Curtis Martin already listed as as Jets head of football operations on his Wikipedia page. You guys are quick. JD neglecting the safety room and killed the D-line. I don't know how much of that was Joe Douglas neglecting the safety room as much as it might have been some of the coaching philosophy paired with him. You could give him, I don't think safety's been our weak point for a majority of this. I think he killed the D-line this year, though. I think they banked on Saleh and Oldbrook being able to make some things happen out of sort of thin air, if you will, from where they were before. I got to text Dom now that I'm sitting here. I'm going to go over to the Talkin' Jets channel in just 4 minutes, and it'll be Dom and I over there. Just realized I did not send him the link for this. So, Dom, if you're watching, I'll send it to you after. Imagine we went the Lamar route instead of Rodgers. So I don't think Lamar would have actually been an option. I think if we offered the 2 first-round picks, they would have just matched it and signed him to the deal. So I don't think any team was willing to negotiate a contract when it would have just not been an option anyway. Eddie says, we will not be able to replace Joe Douglas, as you will all see in a couple of years when talent turns to poo again. Look, I really hope that's not the case, but I will steadfastly say I think Joe Douglas is the best that we've seen so far, and that doesn't mean we can't get better. But I know who the Johnsons have hired in the past, and it was not good. Was not good. Chris says, Spy Tech on the Bucks. Trask is a bridge. I think we have our bridge with Tyrod. Dion, another circus. I could get on board with a circus, right? Like, we're already a fucking circus year in and year out. Let's just open up the clown car doors and let everyone in. I'm on it. Why not? Jeff Monken, coach of Army, would be a home run. They play the Irish at Yankee Stadium this week. That's interesting. I don't think I would go the collegiate coach route, though. Vrabel took the job in Cleveland. He can handle dysfunction. Yeah, but I don't think he's coming here where the owner steps in. I don't think so. Infamous says Kingsbury piece, please. So this is actually the one that I think is interesting and could possibly happen. Kingsbury as head coach and offensive coordinator with Rex Ryan as assistant head coach and defensive coordinator. That would probably be an acceptable pairing for me. You get the loud Jets energy of Rex with a little bit of, Kingsbury, who was here. He was a quarterback in 05 for us, I think. He was 05, 06, somewhere in that stretch, mid 2000s. And I like his offense. He has head coaching experience. Clearly made the mistake with Rosen. Got Kyler. Was able to wash that from his resume pretty quickly. I'd be on board with this. I really would. Alan says, I guess no calls. No, I'm not going to do calls tonight just because I have a hard cutoff at 9. Infamous, pray we keep Douglas. I don't think it's happening. Remove the Johnsons. Yes. Please, no circus. Sonny asking if we're doing calls. Sorry, dude. Yeah, I had to flip-flop my time. So this show will be 8 to 9 moving forward, and then the show with Dom is going to be 9 to 10 over on the Talkin' Jets channel. So I'm going to hop off of this, but real quick before I do, I'm going to go back to, let me get it on here. I want to thank the sponsor of our channel, BetUS. Get a 150% bonus match on your first deposit up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. If you guys are looking for an AFC conference winner to put some money on, Baltimore and the Texans are the two that I'm kind of circling here. Obviously, the Texans have the higher, odds if you want to try and win a little bit more. But I really like the Ravens. I kind of hope it's Lamar's year to win a ring. I want to see a Baltimore versus Lions Super Bowl. That's kind of where my head's at. But boys, and girls, I appreciate you tuning in and hanging out with me tonight. If you enjoy what I do, please hit that like button. It goes a long way towards helping the channel. And I will see you over on the Talking Jets channel with Dom Z.